chat? Let's start the show.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner. And I'm super excited for tonight's guest because she's phenomenal. We've been chatting backstage in the green room and I'm already like, yes, I can't wait to introduce her to you ladies and you gentlemen that are watching at home from your phones, from your computers, wherever you're at. Make sure you grab a drink and join the chat. Okay, make sure you comment, love, share this video out. And if you're watching it live, then comment all the way live. And if you're catching the replay later on, then comment replay all day. You know we still love you and we appreciate you spending your evening with us. Now, put in the comments where you're tuning in from. Let me know. Remember, this is an engagement, an engaging conversation between myself, my guest, who you're going to meet in a moment, and you at home. So definitely put your comments, put your questions down in the comment area. And for those of you who don't know who I am, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lindsey Vertner. I am a peak potential strategist and transformational speaker. I began walking in my purpose after fully recovering from a fatal car wreck that left me brain dead and paralyzed. So y'all know, I know some stuff about mastering your mindset, okay? I teach ambitious, busy female entrepreneurs and leaders how to master their mindset and increase their self-care, self-worth, and self-discipline. Now that's what I do. And I'm excited for y'all to find out what my guest does. Her name is SharRon Jamison, and she is a graduate of Hampton University. So, hey, if you went to Hampton University, go ahead and put it in the comments. She is a life strategist, author, minister, entrepreneur, and a corporate leader who is committed to helping you be who you were born to be, and not settle for what society has taught you or told you to be. Through her coaching programs, books, sister circles, and speaking events, she passionately challenges people to shed societal shoulds and outdated beliefs so that they can soar higher in their personal and professional lives. So I'm super excited for you to meet tonight's Happy Hour Show guest, SharRon Jamison. Welcome.
Lindsey, I am so excited to be here. And thanks so much for giving me an opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with you this evening. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. You are just glowing, looking radiant. I am happy to have you on the show. So I know that I just gave just a little brief overview of who you are, but I want you to pull back the curtains and really share with the people of the Happy Hour Show, who is SharRon really? Like, tell us a little bit about you coming up in the day.
Sure. I would describe myself as probably a little bit of a nerd. I'm a person who loves to read. I'm a PK. And so I grew up very involved in social justice and the church. What most people don't realize, I also used to play the piano for my father's church. So at 10 years old, I was the church musician. I have a wonderful son who is 26 years old. And even though I grew up in the Christian tradition, my first marriage was to a Muslim. And so, you know, that went over was an interesting combination.
I bet.
Combination, but I would say that I'm a person that believes in justice, a person who believes in self-liberation, a person who believes that it is my responsibility and my right to define who I am and define how I want to navigate in the world. And so I make it my business to feel free and to be full and to be faithful to what I believe is right. And that I believe that that's what helps me soar higher. So that's who I am.
Nice. Now, I know that you mentioned a PK. Now, I know what that is, but the viewers might not. Explain that just a little bit.
Sure. And if there's a delay, I do apologize if there's a delay in my internet, but I am a preacher's child, a preacher's kid. And there's a saying that preachers' children are usually the worst children, but that's not really true. What happens is that everybody is looking at us to be the example of what good is. And so sometimes being the PK and being the example really robs you of your ability to go through life and to mature and to make your own mistakes. So PKs, preachers' kids, have bad reputations, but it's just because we were visible while we were trying to figure out life and mature. So we kind of grew up in the public eye. So when we fell down, everybody had an opportunity to see. So that's what a preacher's kid is.
Yes. Oh my goodness. If you are a preacher's kid, put in the comments, #preacher's kid down below. I know quite a bit of preacher's kids. Although I wasn't one myself, I can totally understand what you mean as far as being under that extra scrutiny, because it's like, oh, you see pastor's daughter doing this again, and she's supposed to be the pastor's daughter. I get it. So how would you say growing up as the child of a pastor maybe shaped you in one way or another as you grew through adolescence, as you started to identify your purpose, different things like that?
Yeah. Wow. Very great. Good questions. I would say a couple of things. Growing up as a PK, one, made me understand that my life was just not my own. I grew up understanding that there was a commitment for me to make a significant contribution to the world, that making a contribution was the rent that I paid for being on the earth. So I always understood that I had to give back and that I had to share my gifts, that I had to find a way to make myself better so I can contribute to humanity. So that was the first message. I think the second message that I learned, that how it shaped me growing up, is that I understood the power of service. I understood that I could serve in a way that not only optimized people's skills, but helped them believe in themselves. So I understood that that was really powerful. The third thing about being a preacher's kid, I understood the power of faith, because sometimes that's all you had. We didn't have money. Sometimes we didn't have any reason why to be positive and optimistic. But I understood faith, but I also understood that faith had to have feet, that you did not just pray and sit down, you prayed and participated in your prayers. And so I understood that you had to be responsible, that you had to take an active role in your life. But then as I got older, I understood, being a preacher's kid, that it was my responsibility to define what faith was to me, that I just could not go along to get along and to allow someone else to determine how I saw God and how I understood God. So it was really a maturing process, but it really made me understand that I had a role and that I had to be responsible, not only for what I believed, but that I put my belief in some type of action.
Nice. I love that. And I hope everybody watching at home caught what she said about faith has to have feet. In other words, you can't just have your faith sitting at home. You got to put some works behind that. And I know all spiritual folks out there know the phrase, faith without works is what? It's dead. And I think the same is true, like, even if you're not spiritual, the same is true for everyone in general, because sometimes we have our goals, we have our visions, especially when people don't believe in vision boards and things like that, and they just expect, oh, this is going to come to me because I made my vision board, that's all going to come true. And then they get mad when it doesn't. And they say, oh, vision boards don't work, or making goals don't work, planning out your future doesn't work. And it's because, well, you sat there, you put it up, but you didn't do anything. Like, you got to move your feet and do something. In other words, you got to take action.
Right.
So what advice would you give to the viewers out there that have big goals, have big visions, but haven't really taken action for one reason or another? Maybe they don't know how to take action or where to even start to take action.
Yeah. Good question. And also there's a lag. So if I'm talking over you, please forgive me. It's just a lag in my internet. I would say this. I think it's really important to understand that you have to take action, but it's okay to get help to understand how to move forward. I think so often people try to make an excuse that I don't know what to do, but not knowing what to do is not a reason not to do anything. I think it's important to look at life and understand that every success requires a strategy, but we all have to be agile and adaptable enough to remember and to remind yourself that you have a goal. So you marry your goal, but you date the strategy. And if you date the strategy, you will be able to shift and pivot based on market conditions, or shift and pivot as your understanding of your goals change. Because sometimes our understanding of what we have been called to do, or our desires change based on our exposure to new people, our exposure to more information, our exposure to different mentors. So I think it's important that people understand it's okay to be flexible, because being flexible is what you need to be fruitful. Because as life changes, you have to change. But if you're very clear on who you are, it's easier to pivot without losing your identity. And that's really key.
Yes, very flexible in who you are. Then it's easy to pivot without losing your identity. I hope y'all are catching all of these gems already, and we are just getting started. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner and my very special guest, Miss SharRon Jamison. I am so happy to have her here. We've already been talking about faith, kind of shifting into purpose and goals. So make sure you comment, share this video out, because if it's valuable for you, it's definitely valuable for somebody else on your timeline. And let's get back into it, okay? Make sure you post your questions down below, post your comments, and all of those good things. But Miss SharRon, I want to talk to you about purpose. Now, there's a couple different ways I can go with that. On the one hand, do you think that it's easier for you to find your purpose being that you were the child of a pastor, or no?
What a good question. I believe that we all came to the world with a divine assignment. I think we came to the world loaded and encoded with gifts and talents and skills and inner wisdom to make a contribution to the world and to do something that only we can do. We all have a purpose. Here's the challenge. Our purpose shows up when we're very young. Our inclinations, our proclivities to do something show up very young. Our gifts show up very young. Our being able to hear and sense, our intuition shows up very young. What happens is we get socialized out of our strengths. We get socialized out of our gifts because we have something that we know that we're different. And what happens is we get feedback. Don't do that. Girls don't do that. Boys don't do that. That's not nice. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't believe that. And then we go to school, and then we get messages based on our race, our culture, our immigration status, our educational status. We get all of this data that starts to diminish or make us divest of who we really are. One of the blessings I think that I had as a young person, that I had a person, my dad, to witness I had a purpose, witness my gifts. Because our gifts need to be witnessed or confirmed or affirmed for us to know that we got something. And so when we are witnessed, when our skills are validated, are valued very young, at a very young age, we can start cultivating those talents and cultivating those strengths and abilities. But if you don't have anyone to witness, to affirm, to understand, to validate that you have something special, sometimes you'll spend years drifting, trying to see where you fit. It's important to be witnessed. That's why it's important to not to connect with people who don't expect or accept that you're brilliant, because it's easy to see your brilliance when sometimes people can help you validate it. We all need validation. We all need someone to say, you know what, you're really good at that. You know, you're really a gifted writer. Oh, you can really draw. Oh, I love how you serve. We need that information to confirm something that our spirit already knows. And I was just very fortunate that I had someone, my father would say, you're going to be something one day. You're a good speaker. You're a good writer. So I grew up with having that information, even when society said that as a Black girl, that I wasn't valuable, that I wasn't talented, that I wasn't brilliant. I always had the voice of my dad and all of the old people in church validating me. So I had something to counteract all the negative messages that society tried to give me. I always had some foundation for people to tell me, who told me that I was wonderful. So I had some ammunition to fight against their cultural assumptions, because my father had affirmed with something that the Spirit had already let me know as a young kid, that I was talented. And I think we all have that. We all are talented. We all are talented in different ways.
Yes, 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 y'all. She is giving y'all all the goods, okay? I hope y'all have y'all's pen and paper and your drink, because I think this is a perfect time to find out exactly what's
in your cup?
Is drinking on. Yes, yes, yes. This is the part of the show where we find out what's in your cup. Yes. So our special guest is going to share what is in her cup, and she's going to give us a little cup cam. I'm going to share what I'm sipping on tonight, and then you, the viewer or listener, is going to put in the comments what you're sipping on. And if unfortunately you don't have a drink, then put what drink you're going to make yourself after the show is over, obviously. And it's okay. Hashtag no judgment zone. So whether you're drinking water, some herbal tea, or you got a little cognac in your cup, it's all right with us, okay? So, SharRon, tell us what's in your cup on tonight.
What's in my cup is some tea. I find I tend to be a very type A person, and it's hard for me to relax. So what I try to do is to get some tea at nighttime to start helping me get comfortable and relax so I can sleep well. Because if not, I won't sleep well, because I tend to be very high strung. So I have some tea.
Is it flavored tea, sweet tea, any kind of special herbal tea?
Apple cider tea, apple cider herbal tea.
Apple cider. Okay. And then I saw you have it in your thermal. So tonight I am taking a little easy, and I didn't even recognize my drink matches my cup on tonight. This is one of those like frozen cups that helps to keep your drink cold longer. And all I got in my cup tonight is some orange soda. You love orange soda. I love orange soda. I do. I just dated myself. Nick and Night. Yes, over here in the comments, Tanisha Alea says, drinking good old tangerine tea. I have never had tangerine tea.
That sounds delicious.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you for sharing what is in your cup. And I just love that part of the show, because sometimes we get some crazy drinks. Tabitha says, hot white chocolate mocha for me. Yum. So I like hot chocolate, but I don't like regular chocolate, the food, candy, none of that. But I like to drink hot chocolate.
Wow.
So Mm-hmm. Is your hot white chocolate mocha spiked? Thanks for sharing, Tabitha. So let's get back into it because I just love where the conversation was going. And you talked about how you had your dad to speak over your life. And I think that oftentimes we don't recognize how we're talking to ourselves because not everybody has that community or that support system to speak life into them. And I am very, very, very much of the mindset that the power of our thoughts affect our affect us subconsciously on a personal level and on a professional level. I mean, it's in the Bible if you're spiritual, it's in science if you're not spiritual, or if you need research and all of those things. It's everywhere. There is evidence of it everywhere. And I even have my own personal story to prove how powerful our thoughts are. But not being naive to the fact that unfortunately, so many people around the world do not have people to speak life into them. And so they struggle speaking life into themselves. And so I would just, my question to you is, what advice do you have for those people that, negatively talk to themselves?
Sure. What a great question. A couple of things. The first thing I want to say is that even though we don't might not have people in our family, it is important to be in community, to have someone witness you. We are better in community. Our gifts get cultivated and affirmed in community. And so it's important to find your community because nobody becomes their best self by themselves. We all need to be witnessed, affirmed, not in a way that says that that you're good or bad, but to witness that you have a gift. Many times we don't know that we're talented because it's our norm. Just think about people who can cook or draw. They just do it and they think that everybody has the same ability. So it's important to get with a group that helps you say, no, sweetie, you're really special. No, you're really wonderful. No, that what you have is not average. You are extraordinary. And you won't know how extraordinary if you live in a vacuum. That's why we have to understand that success never happens in isolation. Success happens in community. Not only do you need to be in community to grow, you need to be in community to collaborate, you need to be in community for somebody to support your business. I think we have in America a toxic sense of individualism, this Lone Ranger type of perspective that is very limiting and minimizing. It's important to be somewhere around confident people who can confirm and affirm who you are and what you have. If not, you can develop, but you can never develop by yourself. Now, you said something about our minds. Our mind's important. Our mind gives us data, but our heart gives us desire. And we have to have both of those to be successful, because I don't care how much information you have in your mind. You need inspiration in your heart to be motivated and stay committed. I think this whole thing about a mindset is very Eurocentric. It's not African. If you think about the indigenous cultures, in the African cultures, we had an understanding that we had to touch our heads for information, touch our heart for inspiration, and our hand for implementation. Information, inspiration, implementation. What happens is if we rely only on our head, you have the data, but without desire, you won't have any devotion or discipline. So we got to sure that we need all of that. Again, this mindset is Eurocentric, is not African. And if we as Black women or our indigenous women or women of color continue to try to follow a Eurocentric patriarchal model, we will not be successful. It's successful for them. So why should we do something that will not be fruitful, but really be fatal not only to the community, but to the environment? I don't want to have success at all costs. I want to have success when I am elevated and everybody connected to me is elevated too. So you can't do it by yourself.
Yes. Tanisha Alea says, Our mind gives us data, but our heart gives us desire. Yes, on point. And there were so many things that you said in there because it all makes sense and it's all connected. You know, I talk about all the time how a lack of self-care, it damages your mental and emotional health, and that overflows into your physical health. And so you're blaming your inability to sleep, or you're blaming your lack of energy, your lack of focus, your lack of productivity, you're blaming your migraines on something else. And really, it's because you're not taking care of yourself. So I absolutely 100% agree. And I love that you said that you got to have the mind and the heart and the implementation. So that goes with the thoughts. This goes with the actions, and then that heart piece, that's part of the overall purpose. And I think that's why a lot of people can get easily burnt out or just feel unfulfilled when they are successful in their careers. And it's because you're doing something that has nothing to do with your overall purpose. And so that's why you're feeling that resentment, that subconscious resentment, and that lack of purpose, that lack of fulfillment.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I love what you just said. When we talk about our purpose, sometimes we choose our purpose, but sometimes our purpose chooses us. And so we have to be still. And I ask my clients to ask themselves 4 questions. One question is, what excites you? Mm-hmm. What grabs your attention? The second question is, what ignites you? What galvanizes you? What spurs you on to action? What stimulates you? The another thing is, what delights you? What makes you happy? What makes you laugh? What makes you giggle? What fills you up with joy? The fourth thing, what fights you? The fight you is, what do you feel so passionate about? For example, justice. That this is fighting my humanity, so I got to fight against it because you can't take my humanity. 4 questions. If we can answer those questions, it'll help us understand what is calling us. Because remember, we're always called. We're called to something. We are called to make it work. Now, here's the problem. This is where heart is. If we do with our head again, we can't find fulfillment, because fulfillment is a thing of the heart. The fulfillment is a thing of the spirit. Now, why is that important? When we, as you think of our culture, when you don't know your culture, our ancestry, you will start following a culture that is in total opposition to how we are wired. Mm-hmm. Our culture, as people of color, was more collective. We were more relational to each other, to ourselves, and to the environment. We were more relational to how we interact with people. We were more into rituals, meaning there was a beginning and the end, rites of passage. Those things are very important. So we have to make sure that you don't abandon your culture, because your culture is grounding you when it's not toxic. Now, if it's some toxic culture, you got to leave it alone. But we got to think of, what are some things that keep me healthy? Because if I'm healthy, I will be well. And if I'm well, I'm whole. Those things go together. And that's why I think when we talk about what's important, we got to get to wholeness. And wholeness is something that people think is optional. It's interesting, even when I know that you will say this as a coach, people think hair is optional. Oh, I got to get my nails done. That's optional. Your emotional, spiritual health is not a luxury. That's first. Because you can't build a tall building on a shaking foundation. And your foundation is shaky when you have not healed the wounds, because your private pain will show up in a public place. And that's why we have to heal ourselves and heal our souls. Those are the things that are critical. Everything else is icing. Your hair, your nails is icing, because your nails and your hair is not the only type of self-care. It's the most superficial type of self-care. What's really good self-care is being grounded in your spirit. Meditation, understanding who you are, developing boundaries, developing a sense of self, being able to name what you need, being able to eliminate toxic religions, being able to pressure test your old outdated beliefs that you need to abandon, being able to resuscitate your dreams that you buried to fit. Those are the things that are critical to your own self-liberation. And that's really what's key.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't know if you can see my face over here, but I've been making all kinds of faces and agreements and yeses and amens because I am with every single thing that you just said. And it's so important for everyone to recognize the power in all of that. And over here in the comments, I know they are loving it too. Miss Alea says, you better tell the truth, because there are a whole lot of intelligent people doing nothing. And ain't that the truth? And Cynthia says, good stuff, SharRon. Yes, yes, yes. If you are just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner and my very beautiful guest, Miss SharRon Jamison. And we've been talking about so much already, and we're only halfway through. Now, I hope y'all got y'all pens and papers. Make sure you are posting your comments and everything else down in the comment section. Make sure you post your questions down there right now, because in a little bit, she'll be able to answer your questions live in our next game segment. Alea says, I just threw my whole shoe. That's the type of gems you get when you are tuned into the Happy Hour Show. And so just thank you so much for sharing those gems. And you mentioned, about how getting our hair done and getting our nails done, that's the superficial part of self-care. And yes, that can be self-care to some people, but it's more the time that they're taking for themselves to go get those things done. But I talk about all the time how self-care is a nasty, disgusting, ugly looking process sometimes that we must be willing to go through, because self-care is saying no. N-O, period, without an explanation at the end. Self-care is setting boundaries with the people in your life, your friends, your significant other, your coworkers, your clients, your supervisor, your mama, your daddy, your cousin, your kids, everybody, even your dog Bobo, okay? Self-care is healing those negative traumas that we have experienced in our lives, healing those past experiences so that we can share them out in the world and craft them into our purpose. And so, man, I'm over here speechless, because I'm just like, yes, 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 tell it.
Yeah. Something said something that around self-care. I always think about self-care is what can I do to support and fortify my internal infrastructure? That's self-care. What can I do to make sure I'm okay? Because to go up, you have to go in. So if you want to grow your business and grow your marriage, you got to grow yourself. Everything you are part of will not get bigger and better until you get bigger and better. So my question is to myself all the time, when I start seeing roadblocks or stagnation, I don't look at the circumstances, I look in the mirror. So, okay, SharRon, you are not moving based on whatever KPI or metrics I have established. What's going on? And then I have to say, do I have the goods to get it done? And if I don't, who do I need to hire? Because it's okay not to be able to have the goods, but go buy what you get, what you need. So many people will buy everything else except for coaching and support and therapy. You need therapy just as much as you need food. Because it's spiritual food. You feed your body, you need to feed your spirit. And so I think that is really critical. And I know that I'm in my mid-50s. One of the things I wish I would have done earlier was I always had a therapist, I always had a minister, but I needed a coach, because coaching, they don't try to heal you, but they use the skills that you already have and cultivate those skills to help you be the highest and the best version of yourself. In my new book, I have a chapter called You Need an Extra Set of Eyes to Rise.
Hey.
Nobody can grow without feedback, and I think that's really important.
Yes, yes. Look, there goes another quote for y'all. You need an extra pair of eyes to rise. And I think that that is so important, not only for everyone to hear as far as getting a therapist, but even especially as Black culture to hear, because of course, you know, that therapy piece that was taboo for the longest time. And even though we made so many strides in Black people seeking therapy, it's still not enough. There's still way too many of us that aren't willing to go there because, you know, you keep your business in the house. You don't go telling everybody your business. So I think that's important that you did acknowledge that, hey, sometimes therapy is needed. And sometimes we don't even recognize that we've been through trauma because we've normalized it in our lives, or we've normalized it in society, and you can't figure out why you're struggling, even though you have all the things, not recognizing that last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you went through a whole trauma in and of itself.
Yeah, what you're just saying is so important. So what a great point to make. I think we need to pause and talk about trauma, especially now, when I think there's so much racialized trauma that people of color are enduring. Black people are exhausted. We are spiritually exhausted. We have dealt with protests. We have dealt with pandemics. We have dealt with politics. We have dealt with all types of perspectives that have tried to undermine not only our self-care, but our self-identification and our self-love and our self-pride. And so we have to understand that racism is violence against the soul. And if you are being assaulted daily through the social media, through driving while Black, driving while brown, driving while being different, being othered at your job, being othered at your organization, sometimes dealing as Black women, dealing with patriarchy in our faith traditions. Those are ways that are affecting our soul. It's traumatic. And so I think it's important that every person of color needs to be in some therapy. We all have to be able to talk about what it means to be minimized and marginalized, not only individually, but systemically and collectively. And if we don't do that work, you will never be able to function fully. You will function as a fragment of your ability versus function in your fullness. We got to go to therapy, and we got to stay in therapy. Then we have to get into a good sister circle as women. And that's really difficult because you can only partner with people who have done their own healing work. Because an unhealed person is a dangerous person. An insecure person. And so you can't be in danger when you're healing. Right? You have to be strong enough to be vulnerable. It takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable. And so we have to always think about, am I healed enough to be in a relationship with another woman, to be in a relationship with another man? And if you're not healed enough, go get some therapy, because it's not always somebody else's fault. If you don't have any friends, you're the common denominator.
Say it again for the folks in the balcony. Say it again.
So this is really important. I believe in therapy. I believe in prayer. And I also believe that sometimes you need some prayer with some Prozac.
Hey.
And it's okay to take your whatever you need to do to get help and get healed. Because sometimes, I just think it's important to say this, Lindsey, it's sometimes you can't do healing work because you're so depressed that you need some medicine to help you up, to put you in a position energetically and spiritually and physically to do the work of healing. Healing work is exhausting too. People need to know that sometimes you might feel worse before you start feeling better. And it's all a part of that journey.
Yes. You hit so many points that I could touch on and pivot to. Like, Y'all need to make sure you go back and watch the replay for real, okay? If you're just tuning in, you've been missing out. Make sure you watch the replay. Make sure you comment, love, and share this video out. Make sure you post your questions below, okay? So you can go back and catch all of those gems that have been dropped during this episode of the Happy Hour Show. You are watching it with myself, your host, Lindsey Vertner, and my very beautiful guest, Miss SharRon Jamison. And let me tell you, you just touched on so many different key points over here in the comments. I know they are loving it. Alea says self-care and self-love really should be the standard, but we have normalized making it a luxury so much that it tricks people into thinking it is not a God-given right. Amen. Amen. And she also says care is a right, not an option. Tabitha D. James says so many gems. Woo! Yes. And that is what the Happy Hour Show is all about. And I'm so excited that we are discussing these things. So please make sure you share, because there's somebody that has no clue who I am or who SharRon is, and they haven't seen us. And so we need you to share it so it can reach them, because something in here is something that's going to be their breakthrough. Something in here is something that is the answer to their prayer. So please share it out. Now, back in this conversation, one more comment over here. Renette says, beautiful. Yes, it is. Make sure you post your questions so that we can do the 30-second hot shot here in a moment. That will be coming up. But there were so many key things that you just hit on. And look, my brain is spinning. I don't even know which one I want to go to. But woo, man, good stuff. We've been talking about therapy, self-care, healing those past traumas, so many things. What would you say as far as the trauma of being the invisible one? Because that's a trauma right there. Feeling like you've never been seen for one reason or another, whether that was in your family or maybe that was by society because you were the only Black person, which is kind of a catch-22, because it's like everybody sees you because you're the only Black person, but at the same time, nobody sees you because they don't value your intelligence or value what you have to bring to the table because you're a Black person. And so crazy experience that is. So just touch on that a little bit. Share something with the folks.
You know, when we talk about feeling invisible, one of our human needs, our most important human needs, is to feel seen, heard, and known. So when we feel invisible, it affects our sense of self. It affects our sense of importance. And it affects our ability to self-actualize. We self-actualize. People always think I'm just motivated by myself. To a degree. We might be motivated to do something, but it's that collective energy, that collective encouragement, that validation, that motivation that keeps us moving forward when things get hard. Because it's always easy to start and do something when you're not facing adversity. But being able to advance in the midst of adversity takes sometimes your strength and the strength of others. That's why it's so important to be witnessed, to be seen, to be supported, to be not only challenged, but championed. And when you feel that you are invisible, it's a way of saying that you don't matter. You are not worth it. That you don't even have you're not even important enough for me to see you. It's damaging. And that's why it's so critical when we are in situations where we don't feel seen. We have to think about leaving that relationship. In the new chapter in my book, I have a chapter says, don't connect with people who don't know what you carry, right? And the second thing is, if you hang around people who don't like you, for too long, afterwards, you'll stop liking yourself.
Yes.
That's why it's important to be around people who like you. Because some people, like your gifts, but they hate your guts.
Ooh.
You want people who like your gifts and like your guts, right? Because if not, people will just look at you as a transportation to their next destination. You don't want to be this transportation. You want somebody to say, I value you for who you are, but I also value you for what you can do. But the value for you for who you are is the most important. Invisible. If you feel invisible, don't stay too long, because it will start diminishing you, and you will start diluting your power in divesting of parts of yourself to fit into boxes and into relationships that are too small.
Yes. Did y'all hear that? Some people like your gifts, but hate your guts. And it's important that you are aware of who those people are so that you can remove yourself from that situation or remove them from your environment, from your life. Because I always talk about living a first-class life, which is not about how much money you have, but it's about the quality of life you are creating for yourself. It's about intentionally creating happiness for yourself. And I don't mean toxic positivity or anything like that, but it's about walking fully in your purpose and shedding those masks of fear and shedding those masks of doubt and shedding those masks of, who other people expect us to be. And so one of the key factors in living a first-class life is being reflective. In other words, being self-aware of how you affect your environment and how your environment affects you, which means, like you said, some people like your gifts, but hate your guts. And if you're around them too long, then you'll eventually start to hate yourself too. And you're sitting there like, why am I always so down on myself? Why am I beating up on myself? Why do I not love my life? And look at the people that you're hanging around with. So, oh my goodness, that was a whole word in and of itself. Over here in the comments, Miss Renette says, how about being the tallest person growing up? Yep, know that feeling. And I'm sure all my fellow tall people out there watching or listening know it as well. Hashtag tall in the comments, show you some love. Miss Cynthia says, I like that, to be witnessed. I think that it is more powerful than being seen. Yes. She also says, SharRon, you are bringing the fire tonight. Ain't she though? And that's why I love my guests here on the Happy Hour show. Miss Renette says, speak, sister. such a great show. And we are winding it down. So let's get into this next segment.
30-second hot shot. Answer the question in 30 seconds or less, or take your shot.
Yes, yes, yes. I had to get it in there because I think you're going to kill it. This is a part of a show called 30-Second Hot Shot, where our special guest, Miss SharRon Jamison, has 30 seconds to answer your questions. Some of you submitted them before. Some of you are maybe trying to scramble and do it right now. Good luck. Let's hope you make it. Now, I'm going to set the timer, and let me pull that up. You have 30 seconds to answer the question once I get it answered or asked. Excuse me. Okay. You ready?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you don't make it in 30 seconds, then you got to take a quote unquote shot of your tea. Okay. So the first question is, this will be easy, I think. How do you practice self-care? Go.
I practice self-care by prayer, so I can stay in touch with my spirit, working out so I can keep my body strong, in therapy so I can stay clear about what I need and what I desire in my life.
Boom, with 18 seconds to spare. Yes, let me reset the timer. Okay, so the next question says, I'm going to say that one for last because you might have to have extra time for that. Have you ever experienced burnout? And if so, how did you overcome it? Go.
Sure. I've experienced burnout after being in corporate America for about 36 years. I overcome it when I take a step back and realign my purpose. because I believe we get burned out when we get out of harmony and out of alignment. So I'm always pressure testing to make sure the desire is mine and not a desire that someone that has given me. So that's how you do it. You make sure that you're in alignment and stay in harmony, and then you won't get burnt out. And then take a break. Take a break.
Oh, you almost, but you got it right in the nick of time. So the last question says, what was the hardest boundary you've ever had to set? Go.
The hardest boundary is with my family. I was the first one that started really being successful financially, and people thought I was a bank. And I had to set some boundaries around my finances to make sure that not only I was okay, but also I had left an inheritance for my son.
Oh, nice. And you had 9 seconds to spare. So you killed the game like I knew you would. And I just think it's so funny. I know we're wrapping up, but you just touched on something that I think is a very important topic to discuss, especially for all of my cultured Black melanated viewers and listeners out there. And it's something called the Black tax. And I know I've had this discussion many times with one of my cousins. I've had it with some colleagues before, seen it on social media. And it's so crazy because oftentimes we can be the first one at a certain level or with a certain amount of finances. And so we often feel obligated to help everybody in our family and to help everybody that we're connected to, especially our family and the ones closest to us. And what statistics has found that holds us back from building wealth and building a legacy for our future generations, because it's the Black tax, where when we make a little bit of money, we feel obligated to help everybody else. And so we end up not really making the money that we need to build true generational wealth. So what advice would you have to all of those first generation business owners, first generation wealth people of the Black community, first generation legacy builders, and so on and so forth, so that we can break that stigma of the Black tax and that generational curse of the Black tax?
Mm-hmm. A couple of answers. First, there is a saying or a phenomenon called success trauma. And success trauma is that being successful, you do pay an emotional tax, not only for your own family, but for the community. And so we have to understand that success, every level has another devil. And so the devil might be that you will be rejected from the very people who really need your help. That's one thing. Understand that success trauma, normalize it. Just normalize the journey. The second thing it's important to understand is that that's where you have to do your healing work. Some of the stuff that we believe about our roles, our responsibilities, is tradition, is cultural. But some of our cultural thinking is toxic. And so we have to understand that, yes, there's some obligation, but just like we made a decision to go to college, to start a business, to sacrifice, they could have made some decisions too. And so we cannot act as God in someone else's life. First, is not our place. And when we do it, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing it out of our ego? Because we like being the only one. Be honest. See, that's where the healing work needs to come in. Because sometimes we like being what we call the first, the few, and the only. The first and the few and the only. Sometimes we like it because it makes us feel validated, especially as Black people, in a system of whiteness that devalues us. You see some of the pathology there. That's why we have to understand, as brown people, we got to do our therapy work. We got to do our healing work, because we get it from both sides. We get it from a culture of whiteness that excludes us. Then we get it from a culture of Blackness that makes us feel obligated, not because people are lazy. And it's not really that they are angry at us, but you have to understand it hurts you when you see something that you desire, but you don't know how to give it, and you don't know how to do it yourself. So sometimes it feels like hateration, but not hateration. What it is it's desperation. And so desperation, it feels the same, but it comes from a very different place. That's why we have to be discerning to say, listen, is this envy or do these people just need help? And you can tell the difference because when it's envy, when it's not envy, when you try to give people an assignment to help you, they'll do the work. Versus someone who's just envious, I'm not going to do anything. I just want all of what you have, and I'm not going to make any sacrifices, right? Always be careful when people want what you have but won't do what you had to do to get it. That's dangerous.
Oh, okay. Always be careful of people who want what you have, but won't do what you had to do to get it. And on that word, I think that was a perfect wrapping up point right there. We did have another question that came in from John. How did you heal from the pain of your past? But John, you missed the deadline. So you better hope that she'll go back and type it in the comments. That's what happens when you're not tuned in. So make sure that you sign up for updates at bit.ly/happy updates so that you can stay updated and in tune with all things on the Happy Hour Show. And you can get your questions in advance and not miss the deadline for 30-second hot shot. bit.ly/happy updates. Now, as we wrap up, there is a question that I have to ask all my Happy Hour Show guests. And that question is, how do you intentionally create happiness in your life? And as I mentioned earlier, I am all about creating your first class life. And part of that is being intentional about your joy and your happiness and knowing that you have the power to be a victor instead of a victim. So how do you intentionally create happiness in your life?
I rather say I don't really care about happiness. I want to be content. And contentment is a sign of joy. So I don't really look for happiness because to me, happiness is based on what's going on around you. Contentment and joy is what's going on inside of you. So I want to be content despite my circumstances. How do I do that? Prayer, time alone, good friendships, clarity, and being honest about who I am. Nothing brings more happiness than honesty.
Yes. There you have it, folks. There you have it. And I know that you have a special offer for all of the viewers and listeners. And so tell them a little bit about the free 7-day audio download. If you go to bit.ly/friends who dare to soar with a capital F1 friends, that's important, then they can download this 7-day audio series. So tell them a little bit about that and what is it for?
Yes. One of the ways that we resource ourselves is through our relationships. And our relationships are really critical because our relationships are like elevators. They can take you high to the pinnacle of success and possibility or potential. All your relationships can take you to the pit of despair and depression and destitution, right? So our relationships are critical. And so what I do, I provide a 7-day series to help people understand what are the traits that are worthy of friendship. Because sometimes some things are not worthy of your friendship, not worthy of your time. Because what you don't want to do is have people in your life who bring nothing to the relationship table except for an appetite. And then you will find that you're feeding them, and then you will end up emotionally and spiritually bankrupt. So I talk about the 7 traits that are worthy of your time, your talent, and your treasure, and how to pressure test people to make sure that they exemplify those traits in all that they do and say, and not just how they treat you, but how they also navigate in the world. And so those 7 traits are in that 7-day series, and you get one word a day, one trait a day, so that you can really inculcate that trait and look at how those traits exemplify or show up in your friendships.
Yes. Y'all better go to bit.ly/friends who dare to soar to download your complimentary audio series, and make sure you make the F on friend capital. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. So do that. Miss Renette says, I most definitely will replay. Yes. And if you're just tuning in, and even if you came since the beginning, it's definitely worth going back to watch the replay. So comment, love, share this video out. Alea has shared the link for you in the comments. Thank you for that. Just make sure that only the F is capital, but you are appreciated. And please, please, please share, comment, love this video. Make sure you go follow our phenomenal guest, Miss SharRon Jamison, right here. You see her info on the screen. Follow her, give the sister some love, and make sure you get your life together by watching this replay, okay? And lastly, sign up for updates at bit.ly/happy updates, all lowercase. And then make sure you grab a drink and join the chat. Come back and talk with us on Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, our regular showtime every Tuesday through February for season 2, 9 p.m. Eastern. I love you. My name again is Lindsey Vertner, Peak Potential Strategist and Transformational Speaker. Make sure you follow my guest, Miss SharRon Jamison. You see her info there. And with that, I bid you a very, very blessed and abundant good night. Wait. I got one more thing for you. It just popped in my head. So, Miss SharRon, share with the folks one last final piece of juicy advice.
I would say
to the end.
Sure. I would say people to remember that it's always better to be hated for who you are than to be loved for who you are not. Mm-hmm. And if you love who you are, when people reject you, it's a gift. Never sacrifice your liberation for someone else's expectation. So I think that's really critical.
Y'all better push rewind and hear it again. Thank you for those final words. Y'all sign up for updates because, listen, y'all can't keep missing these episodes. Go back and watch the replay, okay? Thank you so much for being a guest. And for real this time, I wish you guys a very, very blessed and abundant rest of your week. Bye.